What if you found a portal to a parallel universe? What if you could slide into 1,000 different worlds?
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of My Thoughts. So, I give Season 3 of Sliders a lot of crap, and it deserves most of it. But I always say Season 3, and I mean, this is true, Season 3 is where Sliders took a nosedive. Like, Season 1 and 2 were building up, and then Season 3 just started a decline that didn't end until the show did. And really, that decline started with the departure of John Rhys-Davies in The Exodus. Now, I do want to talk about the good aspects, because I did a video a couple years ago about what I thought about it as a whole, and I feel like that video was just really bad, and I haven't even watched it in 2 years, but I remember what it was like when I was making it, and I just remember I was just so angry about the way that the season turned out that I just don't think my thoughts were organized right. So I wanted to make a video to talk about the good parts of Season 3. I don't know if I'll do Season 4 or 5 because Season 4 and 5 really only have 2 episodes each that I would define as tolerable or good. So it would be defeating the purpose to do a video on 2 episodes of a show. Meanwhile, for this one, Season 3 has 7, I think there were 7 episodes from that season that were really good. So I'm going to start talking about them. And we're going to start going from my least favorite to my favorite episode. But I want to make clear before we start, these are what I believe to be the best. So even if it's at the bottom of the list, I still think it's better than every other episode that I did not mention from that season. Let's begin. Slide Like an Egyptian. I think this is the weakest of the Season 3 episodes that are my favorites, that I'm willing to rewatch. Mainly because there's a lot of inconsistency. And I know Sliders was never really big into the whole, like, rational idea of a parallel universe where, like, you know, you had just random universes that were just kind of funny and just kind of alternate universe where, you know, in this episode's case, America was conquered by Egypt. And there are pyramids everywhere. And I don't think that that's bad. That compiled with the horrendous CGI, which I get it was the 90s, and they didn't have a budget, but I think it would have been better if they had went for just building a prop, because it really only factors into a couple scenes, and I think a prop would have looked more realistic than the CGI thing that they went with. Like, even in its first scene, it's a CGI arm, and they have to have, like, the stand-in arm anyway. I would have just went straight for the stand-in arm and just make a, so I guess I should kind of talk, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you haven't seen this episode, a big part of it, one of the not bad guys, but things used by the bad guys, is a mutated scarab beetle. So it's a big beetle. I'm actually kind of partial to the idea because, you know, BlackScarabFilmZ scarab beetle. So it's a giant scarab beetle, and it has a sort of, like, arm that reaches out and grabs someone. And the CGI looks bad, and I would have just went for making that like a prop. I would have put that thing on, like, wheels or something, and just to have it moving around. Because the other scene in which it factors in a huge part, there are 2 scenes, actually, that go kind of following each other, where one scene, it busts down a wall, and it just you could tell the wall is fake when they show it, and they hang on the wall for a while. So you get enough time to be like, that looks fake. And another issue, with the CGI was when it eats, the scarab beetle eventually eats a person, and it just drags the guy away screaming, and then he just kind of dies. And it's just like, it's weird. I will say the good things about this episode are, again, if you haven't seen it, Quinn gets taken by these people and used for an after-death experiment where they drain all of his blood and they want to see if he sees the afterlife, because the Egyptians were super into that. So Rembrandt finds Quinn and he's drained, so Rembrandt's like, well, Quinn's dead, we have to keep moving because we slide out soon. And, like, Rembrandt didn't know that they could bring him back to life after draining all of his blood out. I mean, why would you even think that? So, when he goes back and tells Wade and the professor, just their reaction, like, first of all, Rembrandt sitting there when they walk in it's one of the most powerful scenes, and I think it's even more powerful than the scene after, the professor dies in the Exodus, which you would think that would be a more powerful scene considering it's like he is gone, but it's not. It's honestly better when they thought Quinn died, and then right when they find out there might be a chance he could still be alive, and they open the portal, and the professor's like, I'm gonna stay, you go on. Wade's like, I'm not going, Rembrandt, you want to go home. And Rembrandt stays, and it shows the character development that Rembrandt got between the pilot and that episode. And I just think that's why that episode is really good. So on to the next one. Season's Greetings. It's not a very good episode, and I'll be completely honest with that. But a big thing I like is, one, it's a Christmas episode, and two, it features Wade. It features more learning about Wade. Because, like, very early on, when they would have the doubles showing up every other episode, we only ever really got one double of Wade that we got to know about, and that was the one from the communist world in the pilot. But, like, the rest of the episodes, we learned about Rembrandt's double. We learned about, like, in Summer of Love, Rembrandt's double. In The Prince of Wales, the Professor's double. In The King is Back, Rembrandt again. In Fever, Quinn's double. But we never really got to talk about any of Wade's doubles other than the pilot. And I feel that's a shame. Mainly because early on, we don't know a lot about Wade. We know she works at the computer store, and that's about it. And Season's Greetings gave us insight into her family life that we didn't really get to see before. And obviously it wasn't her actual family. If you haven't seen the episode, they land on a world where Wade died during childbirth that also killed her mother. Her and her mother died around the time Wade was born. So we get to see Wade's dad and sister, and we see how they, like, react and stuff, and when his father finds out that Wade is alive in other realities, it's touching, and and in season 3 we didn't get a lot of touching that often, and it was nice to see. And also it's a Christmas episode, and it's kind of funny. And it also predicted well, I guess it wasn't really predicting, it was making a satire of the consumerist culture that Christmas was becoming, and Christmas was, and Christmas still is. And I just think that's also pretty cool. So, on to the next episode. State of the Art. This episode is good because not only do we get Wade sort of given her spiel about, like, you know, how, like, the Sliders are her family and she wants to get home. We also get one of the greatest villains, I think, from Sliders, played by Robert Englund, who obviously you may remember as Freddy Krueger. So that was awesome. The basic plot of the episode is a world where robots took over. And there's this one guy, the last remaining human, who built the robots, and he lives in, like, the remains of his factory where he wants to convert the Sliders into robots. And they won't let him do it. And it's a really good episode, because while some of it is very silly and stupid, first of all, Robert Englund basically makes the episode watchable. like, if he wasn't in it, I feel like the episode wouldn't be as strong. But it has some good messages, and it's a very good thing with the Sliders, because it's one of the last, like, real character sort of driven stories where, like, everything is sort of based on their interactions. And I just think the episode is really cool. I like the robot idea. It's sort of like the humanoid robot idea from the Isaac Asimov robots. The novels with the novels that were turned into that board game, and they're escaping me the name. But that's why I think that's a good episode. On to the next one. Prince of Slides is another Rembrandt episode, and it shows an episode with his double. And one of the highlights is that we get to see Rembrandt and his twin, we get to see Clement Derricks and his brother Clinton acting alongside, because whenever they needed a Rembrandt double, they called up Clement's twin. That way they didn't have to do those weird effects things where the heights never match up. It was always, and plus, they could shake hands. And that's kind of, the episode is good because, it's kind of funny because the episode is essentially Princess Diaries 2, which is funny because John Rhys Davies was in that movie, but it features a very similar plot with a bad guy trying to take over a kingdom by doing something with the heir to the throne. And I just think it's really funny because John Rhys Davies ended up being the bad guy in Princess Diaries 2, where he was the good guy in the Sliders episode that was essentially the same plot. And I think it's an interesting episode because it's more character development for Rembrandt. Like Rembrandt, basically the plot of the episode is that they land on a world where women can't carry babies to term, so they put the babies into the men for the end of the term. And Rembrandt's double went missing, and so when they find Rembrandt, our Rembrandt, they just assume it's him and they swap the baby in. And Rembrandt goes into surgery because the woman who he married in that universe had a condition in the on Earth Prime where she needed a blood transfusion. So he assumed that's what they needed him for. So he willingly did it. But it's good because Rembrandt, in the pilot, that Rembrandt would have not been cool with it. He would have freaked out. But Rembrandt manages to keep his cool for the episode. Again, character development is really why I like the episode. So, on to the next one. Deadman Sliding. Not only does this episode show us the reverse of that world from the beginning of Greatfellas in Season 2, where the world is ruled by lawyers, it shows us a world where lawyers are outlawed. It also features two really awesome guest stars. Don Most from such things, Happy Days, and it also features Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who you may remember from that one scene at the end of Death Wish, and also from Welcome Back, Kotter. And I'll admit, I watched the episode recently, like a couple days ago, because I remembered it being good. And I hadn't seen Welcome Back, Kotter the first time I saw the episode. So at one point, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs says, "Hi there," which was his catchphrase on Welcome Back, Kotter. And people in the audience lost it at like the game show thing at the Judgment Game. So it was kind of funny because I didn't understand why the first time, but now I do. And essentially, again, it's another double episode. You'll notice a lot of these, I like the ones where they interact with their doubles or their family of their doubles, because I feel like that's what Slider's stronger episodes were early on. Like, Greatfellas is a really good episode. The Prince of Wales, Fever, those are really good episodes. I mean, really, most of Season 1 dealt with doubles. And they sort of strayed away from it in Season 2 and onwards, and they got less common. But I feel like that was the strong suit of the show. And another thing I liked about the episode was Quinn's double, because they made him the antithesis of the normal Quinn. Especially the way Jerry O'Connell acts. Like, early on, a lot of the doubles were very similar in, like, body language to Quinn. But in this episode, it's a complete departure, and I think it was good. And I also like the concept of the whole world where lawyers are outlawed and court is a TV show. It's basically the People's Court smashed together with... I can't even think of what game show it would be. One of those silly game shows. But I think it's really interesting. And I always really liked the episode. Even the first time I saw it, I thought it was a very good episode. So obviously I'm just rambling that it was a good episode, because there's not much I can say other than I like the basic concept of the world they were on. So on to the next one. The Guardian is one of the best in Season 3. It's not the greatest, but it is one of the best of Season 3, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. Basically, they land on... the premise is they land on a world that's like 10 years... That's like 13-ish, 14 years in the past of our world. So Quinn lands, coincidentally, on the day of his father's funeral. And he remembers that a little bit after his father's funeral, he got into a fight with a bully, and in his universe, he beat up the bully, and ended up, not only destroying, the bully's life, not only really, like, destroying the bully's life, but also damaging him. And so he teaches, basically he attacks the bully with a weapon, which is kind of dirty fighting. And so he basically gets, in the new universe, he teaches himself to stand up to the bully and get him away by just, like, punching a little bit, not with a weapon. And it turns out for the better, and it also starts the arc of Professor Arturo and his terminal illness that they never really go into detail about what it is. And I kind of like to believe that it was a result of that Chromag tracking device that they said they implanted in Invasion. And I like to think that it was mistaken for a tumor or something. Because they never go into detail about what the terminal condition is. So I like to think it ties into the storyline that's supposed to be there, but that's just my thinking. And I like the episode because it's time travel without time travel, and it's, again, a piece with the doubles, which I love. So, on to the final episode that I think is the best of Season 3. Double Cross. It was meant to be the opening episode, and I can totally see why. And I don't know why they changed the order. But basically, the premise of the episode is they land on a world where the resources are running out, and so they have blackouts and stuff. And they meet up with this woman, Logan St. Clair, who is also developing sliding in this lab to help save the world. And the sliding was developed by not Quinn in this timeline, Arturo, his double. But his double hopped into the portal before they had the correct landing coordinates and burnt up to a crisp. And that immediately starts getting them a little suspicious, at least the professor and Wade, because neither of them believed that the professor, any version of him, would have hopped in before knowing what was on the other side. Because the professor was never one to take unnecessary risks, and no amount of universe changing can really change that, especially if his double was the developer of it. He wouldn't have done it unless he knew it was safe. So, and they start investigating, and they find out, among other things, that Logan St. Clair is Quinn's double. Which, if you're thinking, how is that possible? I don't know, Sliders is weird. I guess the whole fraternal double thing proves that it's possible that the double doesn't have to be identical. And I mean, the change in the fertilization of an egg isn't that far off. So it makes sense. Although I refuse to believe that they would have the same, DNA signature, which is how they show it, how they find out in the show. I refuse to believe that. That's just not how, body heat signatures work. It was kind of asinine and ham-fisted. But the episode the episode itself is really good. And, not to mention Logan, who I think was supposed to become a recurring villain, would have been a really awesome villain. Because not only could she track wormholes and have sliding, she was ruthless. She was, Quinn's doubles had usually been kind of assholes, with the exception of probably the one from Fever. But every other double they met was kind of an asshole. But Logan was, evil. And I think she would have been a great, recurring villain. Unlike what they did in Season 4 with the Cro-Mags, or even at the end of Season 3 with Rickman. I think that Logan would have been a much better recurring villain, because she just makes a lot more sense, and the fact that she's ruthless means she would do anything to mess with the Sliders, and most likely do anything to kill them, so I think that would have been awesome. So yeah, that was my thoughts on that episode. So, as a bit of a wrap-up, those are what I think are the 7 highlights of Season 3. So, if you're watching Sliders, and you know that Season 3 is bad, and you don't want to watch it, watch these 7, because they are awesome. Watch them in the order they're meant to be watched. Don't watch them in my weird favorites order. Those are just the order in which I rank them in my own head. Watch them in production order, rather, because production order is always better. I don't know if I'm ever going to talk about the worst episodes of Season 3, but if you'll notice, no episodes from after the Exodus showed up on this list, and that was intentional, because every episode after the Exodus is complete and utter crap, in my book at least. You could have different thoughts, but, that's the name of the show. My thoughts. So, like I said, I'm Michael. Those are my thoughts on Season 3 of Sliders. And, I will see you guys I'll see you next time.
Thank you all for watching, and if you liked the video, you can hit subscribe and watch one of my other videos. My videos can be found on any of these fine sites, and if you want to help out, maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time.